We're delighted to showcase the key findings from the inaugural DNA VP of Construction report, an insight into the career path to being a successful leader in construction. Today we'll be hearing from James Hawley, Executive Vice President at Hayes, on the findings from the report, and Bernard Markstein, Chief Economist, Markstein Advisors, on the health of the economy and construction. A few housekeeping pieces first. All participants will be muted throughout the presentation, so please direct your questions to James or the WebEx host using the chat function. I'm now pleased to hand over to James.
Yeah, thanks, April. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, DNA of a VP of Construction, specifically tailored to professionals and candidates. In this presentation, I'll be going over some key findings to help your career path to becoming a leader within the industry. Before we start, let me quickly introduce myself. As April said, I'm James Hawley. I've been with the business for 15 years. I'm responsible for 3 of our high-growth recruitment divisions servicing our clients nationally. These include life sciences, accounting and finance, and the one we're going to discuss today, specifically construction and property. I'm really excited overall in the report. I'm really pleased so many of you guys participated and have joined us today. In addition, you'll be hearing from Bernie Markstein, an economist specializing in the construction industry. He's going to be talking about the health of the economy and overall industry. He'll also be available for questions at the end of the presentation. Feel free during the presentation to submit any questions to us via the chat feature, and we will answer as many as we can, time permitting. During the Q&A portion, I'm also pleased to have join us Alex Powell. He's an 18-year Hayes veteran who manages our construction and property business in our East region. So to start, let's take a look at how we created the report. Overall, the response was excellent. I want to thank all those who did participate. In total, we surveyed more than 130 VPs, directors, executives, and other industry leaders to get their insights into their career. Really how they started, we understood how they progressed, and most importantly, the leadership lessons they've learned. We also interviewed 27 executives across the country from some leading companies to delve deeper into their experiences, insights, and advice. You'll see I've pulled out a few key quotes that I think are particularly relevant to this presentation, which we'll highlight throughout. But as you can also find, we do have the full interviews on our website, which is at hayes-us.com/DNA. And finally, we also had some input from 2 of the industry's leading associations, the Associated General Contractors, the chapter in Houston, and the Professional Women in Construction Association. So looking at who took part in the survey, you can see we had a pretty good range of ages. Most unsurprisingly, the majority were between 40 and 60. The responses were largely from male executives. I think this is just a reality in the industry at the moment, but I'm sure we'll see more women in leadership roles in the future as more have entered into this field. We also have a good range of sizes of organizations. Most are in the 25 million to 500 million range, but we also had a fairly significant number that were under 5 million or over 1 billion. And finally, a great range of representation across the country for where the executive companies are currently operating. So let's start with an overview of the career path. So this is a key piece that we use to map the career steps. We ask VPs to rate the most important skill at each level of their career. That gives us a roadmap to the top office. So when we start at the left with getting the basic business knowledge required, the broader foundation, the higher you can build that, so to speak, is what we're looking for. The middle stage is about juggling all the moving pieces, the complexity, managing projects, communication, commercial understanding, solving organizational goals, problem solving, and of course, people management. And then finally, the key to being a business leader is really having that crucial strategic planning ability, which is on the far right. So let's take a look at the first step. So building that broad foundation. Construction is a technical field, as all of you know, and understanding the day-to-day operations, including how a building is built or a project is put together, is crucial as a base on which to build your career. Where did the majority of the leaders that we surveyed really start their careers? As you can see on this chart, it's really site supervision. And then that was followed by estimating, project management, and trades or labor, rounding out the most common routes in the industry. In fact, more than 3/4 have some site supervision, and 2/3 have experience in 10 or more functions in construction. So the key takeaway there is that the strongest start, to your career is to get good time in the field and look for some variety. Try different functions, different sizes of companies, different sectors, something to broaden your understanding of the front line of the industry. And to illustrate that, Torrey Hawkins from Angler Construction, he made a comment, don't hurry out of your time in the field. That's where you hone your most important skills, including problem solving, leading with different people, leading subcontractors, and other employees. So where does formal education fit into this? Of our respondents that we surveyed, 1/3 of the VPs have a construction management degree. What's interesting is more than half say that that is an imperative degree for success in our industry. More than half have some kind of undergraduate degree. However, almost 20% have reached their position with either a high school or technical diploma, really showing and highlighting that the construction area is one industry where really hard work and on-the-job training can still lead into senior management. And to highlight that, as Chris Desko from Clark Construction says, demonstrating drive, ability, and know-how can drive a successful career, but you do need to invest in continual learning, whether that's a degree, lead, certification, MBA, or other qualifications. So next I want to highlight one piece here, which has been a consistent message throughout the entire project, and that is work ethic as a core value of the industry. So work ethic is rated as the #1 soft skill that VPs need, and of those who second-guess their career at some point, 1/3 said it was due to the stress or lack of work-life balance that comes from the workload. I'm sure we've all been there. I think hard work will set you apart in this industry for sure, but in construction, it's really a requirement for success based on the comments. Many people talked about work ethic, but I wanted to just highlight this quote from Micon VP, Justin Jeffis, who had a chance to sit down and personally speak to you about this. And Justin really highlighted, saying that if you're determined to succeed, then you will need to bring that work ethic to every task, whether you're a laborer or you're a VP in the boardroom. And I think that's key. From the field to the boardroom, this is an industry that demonstrates a lot of time and energy, but it's also an industry that truly rewards that effort. You can get out of it what you put in. And not every construction leader will be a project manager, but everyone needs to be able to manage the projects and teams. It takes the right communication and other soft skills to be able to lead and work with a variety of stakeholders. Add to this the advanced problem solving required to address the unique problems from the build site to the boardroom, and finally, successful project managers can bring together a team of high-performing individuals, not only ensuring a cohesive working team, but honing each individual team member's skills. According to the survey respondents, at management level, the balance between soft and technical skill tips, and soft skills really become more important. By director level, construction leaders spend 3 times as much time developing their soft skills as their technical. Construction VPs tell us communication skills are the #1 trait they look for when hiring. If you want advanced to management and beyond, really focus on improving your written and verbal communication abilities. It's key. Here are the most important soft skills in order according to our survey respondents. You can see at the top, as discussed, is work ethic. That is closely followed by communication skills and people management, which are crucial for getting to and beyond management. And then you can see problem-solving skills is next. So let's move to part 2 of this section. Problem-solving and providing solutions to meet organizational goals are considered 2 of the most important skill sets for a mid-level to management professional. In combination, this indicates that construction professionals must be able to find practical solutions to organizational challenges. At its heart, problem solving is about assessing each situation and finding specific behaviors, programs, or processes to introduce to overcome that challenge. 3/4, or about 74% of the VPs describe themselves as methodical rather than impulsive decision makers. And 91% say that as leaders, they are confident and secure in their decisions, which obviously is a necessity. One piece of problem solving that became clear in our research is the ability to recover from mistakes. 1/3 said that the biggest mistake was a managerial one, and 1/4 said it was a technical error. A big part of the problem solving is fixing your own and others' mistakes. So as Eric Brody from WonderWorks quoted, it's how you react to mistakes that matter. Do you have the resilience and problem-solving ability to persevere and bounce back? And how do you cope with your team's mistakes? So that team leadership is the last key step in this level of your career. No matter how hard someone works or how much expertise they have, no one can do everything themselves. An effective team is critical for success. The #1 skill needed in the mid and management level of a career is people management, and almost 90% of VPs say their team's overall ability was important in helping them achieve their current role. Construction leaders identify delegation, not surprisingly enough, as their #1 weakness, with difficulty collaborating as their 3rd highest. The ability to work on a team, assign tasks, and trust others to complete their tasks is really crucial. Look for opportunities to practice this skill before reaching management. The balance between good oversight and micromanaging is an absolute delicate one, and professionals who fall too far one way or the other for sure will struggle to achieve their organizational and personal career goals. Robert Kondracki from John Gallen and Sons says, specifically says, is you're not delegating, then you're not making the most of your time, and you're not giving your team room to grow and learn. So step 3, reaching a senior leadership role in construction really means moving beyond projects to become a business leader. That requires visibility internally and also within the industry, the business acumen to make good decisions, and the ability to be a partner in determining direction as well as strategy. Construction might be one of the biggest industries in the country, but it's very, very much still a relationship-based industry. When someone you have not met hears your name, what is their feeling about you? Your network is central to success in terms of winning as well as keeping business, finding new job opportunities, and attracting the best talent to your team. More than 80% of VPs say networking is very important for becoming a construction leader, and more than half belong to at least one national association, and 41% use social media to network. As you can see, almost everyone attends some level of networking events. and 2/3 attend events at least once per quarter. Here, David Gregory from Bravo Builders notes, all you have in this industry is your name, and the way that you conduct yourself will dictate your reputation in the market. So the takeaway here is to really invest in that network from day one. Build those strong relationships, treat people well, do good work, and you will have the connections to succeed. Beyond simply your department, function, team, or region, a VP of construction must have a business sense that transcends silos as well as technical experience. All the VPs we surveyed had experience in multiple functions, and 2/3 have worked in more than 10 functions, showing their investment in building a holistic understanding of the business of operations beyond developing expertise in just one area. 1/3 have some experience outside the construction industry as well, informing their overall knowledge. And more than 1/3 have international experience, which is a great way to learn new approaches as well as expand your perspective on the industry. I won't read this whole quote from James Rizzo, although it is all worth reading, but to summarize what he said, James says that if you can understand the financials and how the different parts of a project and business interact and impact the results, then you can add value to your business, tying together the activity of each function, region, and project with the financials and outcome is one of the most important drivers of success. So the #1 skill required for construction executives is strategic planning. It is also one of the top 3 skills needed at director and senior management level. As business leaders, construction professionals are being asked to drive short and long-term strategy, contributing to organizational goals and planning. Half the VPs said the most difficult move of their careers was management to senior management, or senior management to the director level, which really shows how tough it can be to get and prove this ability. But it can also be the most rewarding. Joseph Ragazio from Taliesin Construction says he wants to be the person who doesn't just execute the plan, but who comes up with the plan. That vision of the future is what motivates him, his company, and his team. So that's a summary of the report. So let's just look at some of the key recommendations. #1, focus on continual learning to become well-rounded at every stage of your career. At every level, there are ways to improve across different areas and skill sets, from early job variety to coaching for soft skills to investing in the business education that will drive your career progression. See continual improvement. Next is build your network. We've talked about that quite a bit. Construction is often still a who-you-know industry. From day one on the job, take the time to build those strong relationships with senior professionals, owners, peers, subcontractors, and other stakeholders. This will be a resource for jobs, promotions, as well as business, as well as advice to help you advance your career. And next, look for or become a mentor. Almost 90% of VPs have had a mentor themselves, and 85% having acted as a mentor. So this is almost a prerequisite for leadership. A mentor will help develop your skills, address professional weaknesses, and increase your industry connections. So think about giving back by becoming a mentor with the side benefits of keeping up with technology and other industry developments. All right, so that is the end of our key messages that I wanted to share today. I hope it informs and helps with some of the career challenges and decisions that everybody's making. I'm going to hand over to Bernie now to share some of his insights in the construction industry, which I think will really complement this report, giving you guys, timely information on what is currently affecting your company as well as your career. Then we'll have some time on the back end to answer some questions.
Okay, thank you. This is Bernie. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the economy and construction. So this is both a great time for construction executives and a difficult time. It's a great time in the sense that the economy and construction is moving forward. Demand for executives is improving. In fact, there may even be there's some indications there's shortages, which puts people who want to advance and into a good position. But there are also shortages in the number of some of the skill levels you need for projects, which is the challenge that you face in terms of attracting and keeping good people. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Let me start first by talking about the economy and sort of where we are and where we're likely to be headed. In general, the economy is growing but should be better. We saw first quarter by the official numbers where it was anemic. The real and inflation-adjusted gross domestic product advanced only 0.5%. That number will be revised as more data comes in, so we'll keep an eye on that. But there does seem to have been a significant slowdown, although maybe not quite as bad as that would indicate. Secondly, employment is growing, but we would like to see it be faster. I'll show you some charts in a moment about where employment is, both in the general economy and construction. Inflation remains moderate, in fact, maybe too low from the Federal Reserve's point of view. So we need to keep an eye on that, and it's likely to remain moderate. We're sort of in a low growth but growth scenario. The Federal Reserve has started raising interest rates, but they're not likely to move, according to their own prescription, they're only planning to move 2 more times this year in all likelihood. They always reserve the right to watch the data and change what they're going to do. But given where the data we've seen up till now, it seems likely that those 2 increases will be in the second half of the year, and we're talking about a 0.25% in each case, similar to what they've already done. So it looks like interest rates are going to remain low for the time being. The dollar has been strong, or the foreign exchange value of the dollar, which helps keep inflation down, makes imports cheaper. That's the plus. The minus is that it makes it harder for exporters. That's less of a problem for construction, except to the extent that you're looking for construction orders from manufacturers and producers that export, and they're seeing difficult times ahead of them. They're already feeling the pinch. And of course, we've also seen that energy prices, oil prices have been low, dropped significantly, which has hurt the energy sector. Overall, though, although those effects are clearly going on and have been negative, there's also positives in putting more money in the consumer's pocket. And although we've become more dependent on energy producers in our economy than we were, say, a decade or 2 decades ago, at this point, it's still a net positive for low energy prices. And it appears that energy prices are more or less stabilized at this low level, maybe even moved up. And the one thing we know is that you can see sharp changes in energy prices. Certainly from a construction point of view, low energy prices, particularly for items like diesel fuel, helps keep down the cost of construction, and many of the products that are intensive energy users that go into construction, asphalt and so forth, but even products like gypsum that rely on natural gas at the production level. So this all helps control building material prices, which have dropped significantly, but are now moving up, and we're seeing, in many cases, large increases. But overall, building material prices have remained fairly moderate in their increases. 3 other items. Washington is less of an obstacle, but there's still a question about how much cooperation we're seeing. In particular, a budget was passed, but we're having trouble getting funding bills. That could be a threat to the economy if the funding bills are not passed, and we see less spending than we're expecting. So that we'll keep an eye on that. China, the slower economic growth is having an impact on the world economy, certainly the U.S. exporters, and to many of our trading partners. In terms of our direct relationship with China in terms of exports, it's less of a problem, but we do have to look at our trading partners who export to China, therefore their demand for our products are affected. And finally, Europe, which had been largely a problem, is beginning to show signs of improvement. So that's a positive for our economy. Looking at the employment numbers, this shows you, just to give you a general view of where we've been. And in all these charts where you see the gray shaded bars, vertical bars, those gray shaded areas represent official recession. So you can see how the Great Recession was more significant in terms of employment, its impact on employment. This is total employment, non-farm employment, total numbers. The most recent number on this 3-month, this is a 3-month moving average, kind of smooth things out on seasonally adjusted. We're at 143.5 million workers. And you can see we have surpassed the previous peaks. But we have to remember that, as you can see, this upward sloping curve, that because our population grows over time, we need that growth. And we haven't completely seen as much growth as we'd like. Looking at construction, though, you can see that even more volatile, which is not unusual, as you'll see, as you can already see from this chart. And notice we're on a different scale. This is the current level of employment is less than 5% of total employment, 6.64 million workers in construction, officially in construction. And you'll notice that we're clearly below the previous peak, which included the housing bubble. But if you go back even to 2001, back in April and May of 2001, employment in construction peaked at 6.85 million. So we're not even back to that level. And one of the key reminders and sort of what's affecting the industry is to see that sharp drop over the last several years, essentially from 2007 until 2011 when it began to level off. Over that period, that 4 to 5 year period, a lot of workers left construction, many with skills, and have not returned and it's questionable how many of them will return. Some of them have returned, some of them will, but the older workers simply retired, started on Social Security, are not likely to return. And the other major item is during that period, many of the programs to train workers were just simply stopped. So it's only in the last few years that we've begun training construction workers again, and that's something you really, if your company is not in some sort of apprenticeship program, some sort of training program, cooperation with a community college in terms of drawing people, young people into construction and training them for the skill levels that are badly needed these days, you need to do that, and maybe even look at ramping up any efforts you're already doing, supporting your local associations. Well, I'm going to go through now some of these quickly in terms, here's your monthly change. You can see, except for during the recession, fairly small, rarely negative, and I threw in that upper line at the 200,000 level, which is sort of a barely enough to keep the employment growing and keep some downward pressure on the unemployment rate. You compare that with the monthly change in construction employment, you can see again a much deeper cut. We're seeing some growth, but small growth, obviously limited by demand. And just as seeing your percentage changes, these are year over year. Here's total employment, currently running around 2%. You can see the swings roughly between as high as almost 4% and almost losing 6%. Compared to construction, much more volatile, currently growing faster than general employment, 4.9%, but you can also see the losses, as we showed earlier, almost a 20% loss back during the recession on a year-over-year basis, compared to peaks of around 8 to 9% during better times. And here's the current total unemployment rate at 5%, which some people consider full employment, but in my view, there are still a lot of people on the sidelines, so I don't consider that a problem in terms of growth of the economy or any problems forming for the economy. On the other, now this is the same number, only seasonally unadjusted, which is more ragged. The reason I'm giving you that's 5.1%, is to compare the construction unemployment rate, which is only available on a seasonally unadjusted basis. Not surprisingly, you can see the rather regular pattern in rising in the winter months and falling in the summer months. We're currently at 8.7%, and you can see there has been a steady decline overall in construction unemployment rate. So that's a positive, but it's also finding those qualified workers. That's an overall. So let me run through quickly on where we are in construction likely to go. Overall, this is where this shows you residential, non-residential, and heavy construction, which is civil engineering. I'm going to talk about each of these groups. And by the way, I will provide a PDF of all these charts that will be distributed to you. Let me quickly run through. I'm going to run through the next few slides rather quickly on residential construction. We talk about housing starts, and you see two lines. The lower line is a low estimate of what, based on demographics and other factors, what the going forward, don't look so much backwards, but is going forward what the economy needs in terms of housing starts on an annual basis, an average, and we can go above or below that. And the upper line is a high estimate, but you can see we're even below the low estimate in terms of total housing starts. This is the multifamily, interestingly enough, again, a high and low line, but multifamily essentially is back to where it should be, around 350,000. It'll go up above and below that. If anything, that high, there's some argument that we should be above that high line on a longer basis. Single-family construction remains low, below the low line. You can see the housing bubble earlier, and then but we've worked off much of that, and we're still just below, we're well below where we need to be on an average annual basis, which suggests that there's a long way to go on single-family housing. Multifamily, as I suggested, has largely recovered. Here are the numbers with a forecast that you can see going forward. On all the spending numbers, keep in mind that these are not inflation adjusted. These are nominal numbers, so we've got a long way to go. Here's the breakdown in terms of single family. Even with those large increases, we're still likely to be below what we need over the next few years. Multifamily, as I suggested, has largely reached a recovery level, likely to stay around where it is. And then improvements number, which is I really don't want to talk about too much about for the sake of completeness. Turning to non-residential building construction, which is likely what many of you are involved in, you can see I expect continued recovery, but if you can see the peak in next year, my forecast is not even quite, is roughly a little below the 2008 peak. And again, this is not inflation adjusted. So we have a long way to go. Looking at some of the categories, hotel and lodging came back strongly. Now we're sort of at a leveling out. There was a lot of catch-up during the Great Recession, a lot of delayed maintenance. Now a lot of that has been addressed. New properties are being built, and we're seeing consolidation in the overall market. But there is still some building and some expectation of continued growth in there. Office construction, we're seeing some improvement on that front. Even though the space per worker is down, as the economy improves and you hire more people, overall you may need new space, more space, and also keep in mind technological change that you need to there is a need to increase they have newer buildings that can handle the technology. And by the way, this number includes not just spending on new buildings, but spending on going in and renovating old buildings. So you could take an older building and have to gut it or make major renovations. Commercial, which is mainly retail, is now adjusting to the internet. I think we're making a lot of the adjustments, figuring out how retail fits in the world. Now note, one of the reasons I brought up residential construction and spent a little time on that is that as we see construction of multifamily often includes commercial space in the lower levels on any large multifamily projects of generally 50 or more units in the 100 units, somewhere in that 50 to 100 units, maybe even some smaller projects will have commercial space on their lower levels. That's sort of the only way it's sold. And further on single family, as single family expands, demand for shopping centers, grocery stores, places that cut your hair, and dry cleaners and so on, they need that spurs commercial. So keep an eye, if you're in that area, you need to keep an eye on what's happening with housing starts. And the next area is manufacturing, which that big spike last year had largely to do with oil and gas related projects, energy related projects. That's gone in deep negative, but other areas are picking up. So although we won't see the growth, I think we're spreading out. But there is the problem of the higher exchange rate, which makes some manufacturing less competitive and less willing to invest. Healthcare, I'm looking for some more investment in there. Keep waiting for that to take off. Education, there's been some, particularly in public education at secondary level, but primary, secondary, and higher education, there was a lot of reduction in investment building during the Great Recession. Now we're seeing some snapback as parents are complaining about crowded classrooms, and they're going in and building new facilities, renovating older facilities to take into account new technology. And then in terms of that, we're getting bond issues passed, so we have to keep an eye on that. Finally, there's heavy engineering or civil engineering. I won't go, most of you are not involved in that, so I won't go into as great detail there. But you can see we are seeing, these are our infrastructure project. Even though it's going up on an inflation-adjusted value, we need to be higher, and there's a crying need for investment in infrastructure, and unfortunately, we're not seeing as much as we should. So with that, I will end my end of the presentation and turn it back to the presenters.
Yeah, thanks, Bernie. Boy, I don't know about you guys, but some really good stuff. I found myself jotting so many things down, so I appreciate your volunteering, Bernie, to actually share that slide deck with the group. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff people would like to go back and look through. So kind of moving to our next stage is our Q&A session. So we'll give you guys a minute to kind of type through any questions through the chat feature. You know, just housekeeping, I also wanted to make mention that, you know, the report for this information that we provide on the Hayes side will actually be available on next Monday. That's the full report. So if you want to request a copy, you can go to the website that's listed there, or feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll make sure that you get a copy. And then we'll also, again, for everyone that participated, make sure we get a copy of Bernie's slides as well over to you guys. You know, I actually jotted down a couple of questions, Bernie, maybe just to get the conversation going, because it was really fascinating, everything you put out there. So one thing I wanted to get your opinion on is, you know, we find that with the demand, a lot of our clients, you know, a lot of the GCs that are out bidding for projects are seeing that when they bid for a project, get the project, and by the time the project starts, material costs have gone up. What are you seeing from kind of those price increases and how that would affect somebody in the construction space today?
Sure. What we're seeing is, as we do see the more construction that I've presented, that's why you have to look at everything. You can't just look at your own area. You have to be looking at residential, non-residential building, and the heavy construction or the civil engineering type projects, because all of them demand building materials, some obviously different than others. And of course, what we've also seen is a period in which many of these building material prices dropped significantly. So when you look at them over time, many of the producers took real hits, and I don't think this is unique to this period, but they're always looking to raise their prices. But on many of them, they're definitely trying to make up for where they've been and sort of got hit. So when you can look at if you're in residential, for example, you find that wood products, particularly softwood lumber, took a big hit, and even from 3 years ago, we're down, according to the Producer Price Index, we're down 11% from there, 7% year over year. But they're trying to put through price increases. Similarly, gypsum products, they took a real hit during the recession, but now they've been trying to raise their prices, and they are up 7% from 3 years ago. They're up, but they're down 2.2% from a year ago. So they're looking for every opportunity to raise prices. Now, of course, it's energy prices that have taken the real hit, and those do still remain down. For example, if we look at diesel fuel prices, again, a major factor, they're down 63% from 3 years ago, almost 35% from a year ago. So they still remain low, and therefore asphalt and some of the other prices are down. But we do see, for example, steel, that iron and steel that had dropped significantly. That's starting to come back. A lot depends on China, why you have to keep an eye on China for some of these industrial products. So essentially, we've hit the lows on many of these, and for most of them where you're talking about, they're going to be increases and probably greater than the rate of inflation. So overall inflation is running at best 2.5%, whereas I think the expectation for building materials is easily 5 to 6% going forward. And with labor, you might see even greater, particularly for skilled labor, as I've suggested. So you're definitely seeing some overall price pressure in terms of your cost of anywhere from 4 to 6%, maybe even higher, depending on your particular area.
Okay, great. That makes sense. I want to switch gears because we have a few questions that are rolling in. Alex Powell, are you with us?
I sure am. Thank you. Thank you, James.
Alex.
That's very interesting, guys.
Well, welcome to the conversation. I had a couple questions I wanted to direct at you that have come through. One interesting one that someone sent through, basically about promotions, and ultimately, is it more common to get promoted internally or to seek external, maybe changing jobs in order to get that promotion? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. I mean, from the study and the survey that we did, we found that 80% of these individuals were hired externally. But the point that really stood out is that almost half were referred to their role. And if we include the networking piece that we've discussed and the importance of that figure rises to almost half. So realistically, between referrals and networking, 50% of VPs got their role through that method. So it's really mixed between the two.
Okay. So you're not going to pick sides? it can be good both ways.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the networking piece that you sort of highlighted in the survey there, how important that is, not just from a making those connections in terms of potential promotions, but being the face of a business, getting out there and helping develop those businesses, and that's obviously a very, very key component of becoming a VP or a director within a construction company.
Perfect. And then another question that came through that I think you could field, Alex, is related to networking. And with that is, what do you recommend, in order for somebody to kind of take their career to the next level? Like, what kind of networking do you see as the most beneficial, knowing that our time is pretty compressed and, we can't be, in two places at once, and our jobs obviously come first. So what do you recommend? What do you see as more practical from a networking perspective?
Well, I think from within the construction sector, there's numerous different networking events. It's a very well set up industry for that. And you've got a lot of breakfast seminars, you've got evening events, you've got lunch events. So I think you can fit it in around your job. And I think also a lot of companies are very open to people attending these events, because usually there's an educational piece attached to them. So it's about upskilling their employees as well. So, a lot of events I go to, there's a lot of different people from a lot of different companies and a lot of different levels within those companies. So I think it's, it's something that you can fit in. In most of the bigger cities, there are numerous events. You just got to look for them within the different associations within your particular sector. And I think one of the key things is making sure, as we try to within our business, is to try and get individuals to attend these events very early on in their career. Because I think what happens to a lot of people is that, it's when they get to a certain seniority level, they think, oh, I need to attend these events, and it's quite a daunting event sometimes to walk into a room and just start, talking to strangers. Whereas if we get people bedded in at a very early stage in their career, within the first year, then it becomes just part of what their job is. So I think, getting people involved early is very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. One other piece on that I would add is maybe buddying up. To Alex's point, going solo can be intimidating at times, especially walking into a cold environment. Maybe you don't know anyone, but if you can buddy up either maybe another professional with another company that you know and kind of team up to go together, or even your own company, getting a couple of your colleagues to go with you, certainly eases it up, and it's like anything else, right? You get out of it what you put into it.
Absolutely. I had a quick question for Bernie as well, actually, if Bernie's still on the call.
I'm here.
Oh, yeah, good. I just wondered, on the slides you showed there, the growth in the sort of single-unit housing space had been fairly muted. It would be fairly slow in comparison to, say, multifamily. Do you see anything changing in that? Do you see is there a particular catalyst that might inspire that to grow quicker?
Well, there's a number of factors that are driving that. It's everything from the demand side. So employment is key. So if we see employment picking up significantly from that overall sort of 200,000 level, if you, let's see, that's the slide, if you could put up slide 29, I think it is, there that shows that. So that's one factor. Yes, so you can see that if we start growing significantly better than 200,000 a month, then over time that will help housing demand. Another factor is, of course, continued low interest rates, although the threat of higher interest rates sometimes moves people off the fence in terms of actually deciding, hey, we better get into a house and a mortgage now before rates go up. But I think with there's many factors, but another factor has been the relatively tight standards for obtaining a mortgage. So if you have sterling credit and or a large down payment, you have no trouble obtaining a mortgage. But the low interest rates are only largely for people who do have that sterling credit and or a large down payment. So for most of the rest of the people, they're finding it more difficult to get into the mortgage. And then also, let's not forget that at least for some of our younger people, they're carrying large amounts of student debt. and are putting off that housing purchase. And there's other factors in terms of cost factors for builders and so on. So that's almost a whole other webinar on what's going on in there. But there is some potential for faster growth in there, and certainly the need is there. To the extent that we're not building there, then you have to build in multifamily. These people have to live somewhere.
Excellent. Thanks, Bernie.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question, and it's actually related to shortage of people right now, so I'll toss this to you, Alex. With the shortage of professionals in the space, obviously documented and backed up by what Bernie showed on his slides, with that shortage in the U.S. right now, retiring baby boomers and people exiting the field and the market, are you seeing a foreign worker type influx at all, where companies are looking externally for professionals? Specifically, they asked about the heavy industry, civil engineering spots.
In terms of going offshore, we're not massively seeing a spike in that area, mainly because of the complexities of actually getting people into the country from a visa perspective. So I think there'd certainly be a greater demand if that was feasible. We do see it in some areas, such as cost management, which is a far more defined industry in other parts of the world. There is a demand here we're seeing in New York on the West Coast to sponsor people to come in. But I think the difficulty with sponsoring people is a real challenge on that. I think one of the points really around that is maybe not even overseas. It's whether companies are prepared to look at people from other sectors. So if the civil sector is very busy, are they prepared to look at people from a commercial sector if that's quieter that can transfer over? And at this stage we don't see any particular willingness to do that. Now, as skill shortages become higher, then maybe there will be a willingness to do that, and we've certainly seen that in other parts of the world. Demand will drive that. But I think another point which Bernie had mentioned is it comes back to that lack of training, or the training aspect that everybody just puts on hold the moment there's a recession. I think those companies that are ahead of the curve and are prepared to train people and are prepared to maybe think outside the box in terms of transferable skills are probably the ones that will end up at the top of the pile, because they'll be able to have a far stronger and diverse workforce than those that are just saying, sticking to their guns and they have to have this exact experience. So I do think going forward there's going to need to be a greater openness to transferable skills, to taking in trainees, and potentially to taking people from overseas.
This is Bernie. I agree wholeheartedly. And you need to think longer term, not just for what you need now, but what you need over the next several months to maybe even the next few years, which does mean these training programs. And as was just suggested, think in terms of expansively. So not just that you do need a training program in your own company, but think of partnering with your community college, with the trade unions, with any associations, construction associations that have training programs, and if they don't, maybe push them to start training programs.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So kind of the net there is nothing today that we're seeing, but obviously, companies need solutions, so all the above is potential. Well, good. Well, guys, I appreciate everybody's time today. It's really all the time that we have. I want to thank in particular Bernie for joining us, and excellent insight into the economics of our business. And I want to thank Alex for, shedding some insight into the employment side of the puzzle. I hope you guys have enjoyed the presentation. If you'd like to re-watch this later, it will be on our website as well as our YouTube channel later today. And with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us, and have a great day.